Welcome. I'm Bernice Ross, the CEO and President of BrokerageUpandRealEstateCoach.com, and I am delighted to welcome a longtime friend, Bonnie May. She is the broker-owner of United Real Estate in Lexington and Louisville, Kentucky. She's a 30-year veteran in the business. And Bonnie, you've seen 4 downturns. How are you managing through this one?
Well, this one is different for sure. I'm kind of enjoying working from home, but as I have said to many people, we are in new territory, uncharted waters, and it is leadership one day at a time.
Well, you are doing a lot of interesting things, but before we talk about how you've been managing through this, give us a snapshot of what's happening in terms of, you've been under a lockdown, but business is still kind of going on normally. What's going on? And I was especially interested in how they're handling closings in Kentucky, because normally the agents and the seller and buyer have to go to the closing at the title companies. So if you could kind of share what's going on, I thought this was really fascinating.
Sure. Well, yes, normally it's a party at closing. We all sit around the table, buyer, seller, sometimes children, spouses, 2 agents, and the title closer. So it's quite an event. But we do have a very strong governor in Kentucky who has implemented some regulations that's pretty much closed most businesses except what he calls life essential businesses. And luckily, title companies fall in the same category with banks, so they can remain open. So we are continuing to do closings in a very creative way. In one of my markets, the buyer goes into the title company and the 2 realtors and the seller sit in their car. And after the buyer signs all the docs, the runner brings the deed and the docs that the seller has to sign to the car. They sign with their pen. Everybody has their own pen. Nobody shares an ink pen. They sign their docs, and then the runner takes all of those docs back into the office, makes copies, brings all the copies the realtor gets with their commission checks, everything that the seller gets to the car, and then everybody's on their merry way. So only the buyer goes inside the building, the buyer and the buyer's spouse or whomever is signing. So other title companies are doing it remotely. They're doing it strictly by mail and electronic signature, because that has been ruled as okay in Kentucky, the electronic signature. And then the docs are mailed out. Sometimes the docs are mailed in advance to the parties. So all in all, the bottom line is business is going on. We are not stopping with our closings. And that is really a good thing, because the only thing that we are restricted from doing in our industry is open houses. And our governor has mandated that there be no gatherings of any kind, more than 10 people. And of course, when you have an open house, you don't know if you're going to have 2 or 25. So no open houses. However, we are allowed to continue showing property as we normally would. So I have agents who are carrying Clorox wipes and paper towels and whatever to get into the lockbox and to open the doors and touch the knobs. And sometimes if the house is vacant, they open the door and stand back and let the buyer go in. And if somebody lives in the house, of course, those people should be gone if possible. So we are doing very well. Actually, I have been amazed, because we've been on these restrictions now. This is our 9th day. And I haven't been out of my house. This is the 9th day. And I haven't been to my office since the 9th day ago. And things are moving right along. So it's just different. I'm not going to say it's good or bad. I think it's more good than bad, because we are able to continue working. I have spent more time mitigating angst with some transactions and settling people down. And I was reminded of stories I'd read about the Great Depression in the 20s, where people were jumping off buildings. We haven't had anybody quite at that level of emotion or of frustration. So again, but it's been very interesting. We have done a lot with Zoom and Facebook Live and a lot of online portals.
You talked about calming the angst. What kinds of things are you saying? Because I know everybody's looking, there's a lot of energy and that
Mhm.
translates in, you're in a, put that onto the COVID-19 with the transaction, and it's a lot of real
Exactly.
heavy stress. How are you counseling your agents or even the buyers and sellers that you may be talking to?
Well, we have an addendum that has been implemented in one board, and most of the angst comes, I guess, from that what if. It's not so much as what are the facts today, but it's, oh my goodness, what if? And so I have counseled my agents. We did a class on this online, and I have said, if the buyer loses their job, if they are laid off, or if their income is reduced to the point where they do not qualify for the loan today, then for them to just say, I want out of the contract, it requires their lender to write a denial letter. However, the addendum that has been implemented says that if the buyer and seller understand this is a temporary thing, and if they still want to proceed, then all parties sign an agreement saying that 30 to 45 days after the restrictions are lifted, they're still going to work together to close the transaction. If they don't want to do that, then they also have the option of signing a release, and then it's over with. But it is a matter, I think, of determining, is this something that is real, or is it an imaginative fear in the minds of the buyer? So the two most, I think that the most drastic cases we have had, two of them, were cash deals, and their money was in the stock market. And so one of them called and said, we cannot close because we don't have the money to take it out of our stock portfolio now because we've lost so much money. And I said, okay, if you don't have the money to close, then get your stockbroker to write a letter that says you no longer have the funds available to close on this home. Well, the stockbroker wouldn't do that because they indeed still had plenty of money to close. It's just they didn't want to spend it. So finally got that negotiated. So it's a matter of one case at a time. No two are alike, and no two have been alike so far. But it's reminding the agents, let's stick to the facts. What are the facts? The fact that you are fearful because we are now under such restrictions is not a contingency in that contract. And if financially they're able to proceed, then that's what they have to do. And if they choose not to, then it's no longer a real estate issue. It's a breach of contract. It's a legal issue. So you've got to seek the advice of an attorney. So I think, again, just saying, what are the facts? Let's look at the facts. And if they don't qualify and they know they're, for instance, one company in Louisville has completely shut down. They transferred one of the workers to a plant in North Dakota. But he's an engineer. His position is an executive position. His house is under contract, ready to close in 10 days, and he wanted to cancel the deal. The buyer said, no, we want your house. So we were able to negotiate an extension there because he really doesn't know if his plant will put him back in Louisville, Kentucky, or if they will transfer him to North Dakota. And either way, does he still want to sell his house? So, it's like you don't want people to have to make decisions like that when they are in such an emotional state. And so we just negotiated an extension. So I think the agents have been very open to that, and they've been very good. They just need somebody to verbalize to them, here's what you do. It'll be okay.
Well, I tell you what, Bonnie, you just given us a master class on how to handle a lot of the different kinds of problems. But I love how you laid out, the actual real estate issues and then the breach of contract and at that point in time, it becomes a legal issue.
Right.
And I think any broker owners or any agents listening to this, that's something that you need to keep in mind. You still have a contract in place. Depending if your state has issued one of the COVID-19 addenda, and I know that's happening all over the country as we speak, then you follow the guidelines set forth by your state. And I'm not aware of any real estate commission, any real estate association, any state real estate association that doesn't have a legal hotline. So if you get into trouble, I'm certain that attorneys are available right now, because I imagine those lines may be a kind of a long wait. Bonnie, you did something kind of special on Tuesday for your agents. What exactly did you do? I was fascinated that you pulled this off, and then please talk about the results.
Okay. Well, we had on our calendar, we had planned to have a happy hour, a 4 to 6 happy hour, and it was a celebration to honor our top producers, our award winners for 2019. And so it was going to be a catered affair, and it was going to be very festive, and they love those kind of things. So I didn't want to wait much longer to honor the top producers for 2019. So we did it virtually. And probably we had half of our agent base log on. And I had it in a PowerPoint presentation, and I showed some highlights of 2019. I showed some pictures of all the events we'd had, and the convention we had been to, and some seminars we had been to, and our Halloween party and our holiday party, and just kind of recouped 2019. And then I gave the statistics about, here's the total number of closings, here's where we're ranked in the board, here's how many 82 agents joined us in 2019, and we finished number 5, and here's the staff we all added, and just kind of a state of the union. And it was all in PowerPoint, so they could hear me, and then they could also see that on their screen. And we did it on Zoom.
Through Zoom?
Yes, did that through Zoom. And then I honored the top 3 agents in each category in the top team. And we have a Spirit Award, and we have an Ambassador Award. And we did all of that online. And then I gave them the opportunity to make comments. And I unmuted everybody, and the response was just overwhelming. They were so grateful, and they were surprised a little bit at how some of the rankings were, and they expressed their appreciation to me for our training and the support. So it was just a really very positive event, and I was sweating bullets all day, quite frankly, to see if we could pull that off on Zoom. But again, I knew we had to do it because I didn't want to wait till May or June to honor our 2019 top producers.
Now, were you using the Zoom, the webinar platform, or the regular, just the Zoom meeting platform?
It was just the regular Zoom platform.
And then they just logged into the meeting just as audio muted participants.
Right. And I was able to share my screen so that I could do the PowerPoint. And it just really worked out well. And so we're going to do a lot more of that. And I have encouraged them. I sent them a link, which is a little tutorial for Zoom. I said, what a great way for you to connect with your families and your real estate families and your clients, the people that are pending. It's so much more personable if you can look at them, if you can see them in a video conference rather than just a telephone call. So I've encouraged them to try Zoom, because I think especially for buyers and sellers out of town who may not be familiar, they may be coming to Kentucky, it's just really important that they learn how to do that.
Well, one of the other things too is that, your state has become a destination for quite a few people now because of the lifestyle and the prices, just everything. There's so many quality of life issues there that are really positive. One of the things I was really fascinated by is you were talking about your staff and how they're working from home, but how you're managing your deposits and everything. How's that working for you? What have you done there?
Yeah. Well, when an agent, our state, the agent still brings the commission check back to the office. And we have a little system where they make a copy of the check and they put it in an envelope, and they have to fill out the front of the envelope the property address, their name, and the fact that it's a commission check and not a good faith check, and the amount, and they put it in this envelope and drop it in like a mailbox right outside the door of my transaction coordinator. And the mailbox is literally locked. Nobody can get in it. There's a little tiny mail slot for an envelope. So my transaction coordinator has been going to the office at 11 in the morning and at 4 in the afternoon, and emptying that box, and then she makes the deposits directly on her desk with a little machine, and then ACHs the agent's commission to their bank account. So the most important thing in this time is the agent's money and the payment of their commission cannot be interrupted. So we have worked that out in all of our offices, and that is working very well.
And the rest of your staff is working from home at this point. Any
Right.
challenges in managing your staff that's used to being face-to-face versus,
Yeah.
working virtually?
Well, I was on the phone for about 45 minutes today going over things with my marketing director, and there is a level of trust there. I mean, let's face it, they could work 2 hours and sit in the sun for 6. I have no way of managing that, but all of that issue is determined when you hire them. If you hire them and you make it clear, here are my values, and as long as you share my values, we'll be able to do a lot of great things together. And in all of my offices, that's the way I feel about my staff. So I don't even think about that. I just have to say, I know you can work at home. I've given them laptops to take home and do their work, and I check in with them, a couple times a day, and know that they're doing the best they can do.
Now, you also mentioned to me that you're regularly checking in with your agents. How are you going about doing that? And what are some of the biggest challenges that they're having right now working from home that they normally wouldn't have, given that they're COVID-19?
Well, I have 2 associate brokers that help me with different parts on the leadership team. And we have divided our staff into thirds, into 3, because there are 3 of us, and we're just calling them. And we're just basically saying, how are you doing? How are you like working at home? And truly, the biggest challenge for most of them is now that our schools have been closed for going on the 2nd week, those people who have elementary children have to worry with being a homeschool teacher, which some of them don't like at all. And that takes 2 to 3 hours every morning. And so I have talked to them in the past about call blocking and what you have to do to manage your day and not let your day run you. And so, instead of making your calls 2 hours in the morning or working in your database 2 hours in the morning, now you've got to be a homeschool teacher, which is fine. You just move that block of time that you need to work on your database and talk to your clients and do your follow-up calls. And, you move that to another time, either early afternoon, late morning. But that is a conscious thing that you have to do. You can't just stay frustrated and think, I don't have time. No, you're going to change your time block to do it another time during the day. So it's been really kind of comical, kind of funny listening to them vent about new math and I've learned how to carry the 1 a different way, and however they're trying to do math for a 4th grader. So, but for the most part, they have good attitudes, and, still take 2 or 3 walks around the block each day. And it's where we are. And, again, we have to be resilient, and we just have to be adaptable.
One of the things I wanted you to share, Bonnie, is that you actually kind of pioneered selling a house on FaceTime back in 2016, 4 years ago. And I know there were probably there were sales that were being done virtually, but tell me about the one that you experienced, because I think this is also a great takeaway that we can do the business virtually for almost every aspect of it. So what did you do? How did it work?
Yeah, well, I really think that's the silver lining of where we are now. And that's a great blessing that we have if we know how to use technology. So in 2016, my buyer was a young couple with a 9-month-old baby, and of course, they were born with technology. They learned how to do it from the time they could speak. And so they were at the beach, but we knew that the area that they wanted to live in, that when houses came on the market, they sold immediately. They sold immediately. They were snatched up. And so sure enough, they're in South Carolina at the beach. The house in Kentucky came on the market, and they called me and said, "We want that house. Can you go walk through and FaceTime it to us?" I said, "Well, this will be a learning experience, but we'll do it." And so I took my iPad and I opened FaceTime, and I just toured every room, and I spoke in detail about the size and the features and where it was located off the hall and what was in the basement and what was on the second floor and the gazebo and the mud room, which was so important to this young mother, a mud room. And so they bought the house, sight unseen. It was a $680,000 house.
Wow.
They bought it, and we did have a contingency in it that they would approve the purchase within 24 hours after they returned, which they walked through and they said, "Yeah, it's exactly like we thought." So it was just an interesting time, but it was a learning experience. But how neat is that? So we can do that today. We can do that
think
today.
that's such a wonderful takeaway, Bonnie, because it really does speak to the fact that you can do this. Before we jumped on today's episode, we were talking a little bit, and this goes back to the old fashioned way of when you sell investment property that's tenant occupied, drive by only, subject to interior inspection upon acceptance of offer. So that's another way, but this is, you use that approach when they're out of town. And I think this is really useful right now. You've got somebody, if you can get the interior of it, and you can't, your sellers can do a FaceTime to you.
Right.
And you can record that. So, I mean, there are ways that you can get this out for showings, get the sellers to do it if there's a reason that they don't want people in there, or they're not comfortable being around them, whatever the case may be.
Exactly.
And the beauty of this too, I'm thinking, especially with someone who's got kids at home, and it's like, only have to clean up my house once.
Right. Exactly.
I do the video and I'm done.
That's right. No more picking up. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
No, I have to clean up for showings. I think, now I think about this, I'm liking virtual showings even better,
Right. Exactly.
Especially if I'm the seller.
Exactly. And that's a great idea, because the seller could do exactly what I did. I started at the front door and just went into every room, and now we're going into the dining room, and now we're in the kitchen, which is across the hall, and blah blah blah. Seller could do that. Yeah.
So, Bonnie, to kind of wrap up, what are your takeaways for the brokers and agents who are listening in? Your kind of best advice or final takeaway for us today?
Well, I think it is a mindset, Bernice. And the mindset is, we are going to do whatever we have to do to take care of our agents, number one, take care of our clients, and do business the very best way we can. This COVID-19 is not anything we can control, but we can control how we respond to it. And if we are careful, if we are cautious, and if we are smart, we can continue to list and sell homes and help people move if that's what they choose to do.
Oh, Bonnie, that's just such a great way to end. Thank you so much. We've been visiting with Bonnie May. She is the broker owner of United Real Estate in Lexington and Louisville with 350 agents. And it sounds like business is pretty good in Kentucky. Bonnie, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Bernice.